Well, hello there, friends, and welcome to another episode of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Braheem, and today my conversation is with a beast of a loan originator, Sam Rosenblatt out of Baltimore, Maryland. I've known Sam for about 4.5 years now, and he is truly one of the great originators in the United States. I want to share with you just a little bit about him before we dive into our conversation. Sam has been in the business for north of 25 years. He is a terrific originator, as I said, with USA Mortgage. He does, to give you an idea, when I say terrific, I mean, in May of 2024, he funded 27 loans. In June, he funded 26 loans, I believe. So, I mean, those are just spectacular numbers in a market like this. He also funded 1,084 loans, I believe was the number, in 2020 during the COVID year. We're going to get really tactical. This promises to be one of the great episodes of the 360 Experience as it relates to the subject matter of being a true mortgage professional and doing all of the right things to tactically implement. You're going to really understand why Sam's business has grown by leaps and bounds over the years. We're going to talk about database management. We're going to talk about connecting with borrowers. We're going to talk about workflow. And I don't necessarily get into the workflow conversation with most originators, but it needed to be discussed with Sam because his processes obviously are top notch, or he would be able to fund the number of loans that he's funded. So get ready for a terrific conversation. Our sponsor, as always, is the Loan Atlas. If you have not looked at the Loan Atlas yet, you must. You can, in the link below here in the show notes, find out information on the Loan Atlas. Go to the landing page where you can get a demo scheduled. It is an absolutely tremendous resource that you want to have access to as an originator, especially in today's market. 18 amazing faculty members that are your teachers and coaches and mentors within that platform. If you are a subscriber to this show, thank you. We thrive on your subscribership. If not, please go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcast channel, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or Apple or Google. And if you like the show, please forward it to somebody that you think could benefit from it. I know that all of you know other originators within the mortgage space, and so many of these conversations are actually very applicable to real estate agents, and you can forward them to your realtor partners as well. And without further ado, folks, let's have a conversation with Sam Rosenblatt in the 360 Experience. Sammy, my boy, how are you?
Good morning, Tim. How's your morning going?
It's going great, man. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this. I know we're going to have some laughs. And actually, I was thinking about it last night. I was like, I'm actually really looking forward to getting to know Sam in an even deeper way. I have a feeling that there are probably some things that I don't know about you, and in particular about why you're such a successful originator. And I just want to start off, bragging on you a little bit.
Thank you.
It's interesting when you see people doing gigantic numbers in the years of 2020 and 2021. You know that they're good originators, or they wouldn't be able to do those numbers. And yet at the same time, when you really know if someone is a true originator, which I consider you to be one of the true great originators that I know, it's in the years of 23 and 24 that you really realize who the truly great originators are when things are tough. And it's one of the things that I want to really unpack with you today is how you go about cultivating relationships and nurturing relationships. Because, I was in Vegas, the mastermind event earlier this month, and I talked about you from the stage. I referenced you as one of the true originators who understands the importance of relationships. So what I'd like you to do for me is just highlight for the guest, what was your best year or two, units and dollar volume? And then what did 23 and 24 look like? Because I think that's actually what's even more impressive.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. The 2020 was, I had a goal of 1,000. It was kind of a made up goal, when we saw rates plummeting. So we closed over 1,000 loans. I think it was like 1,078, and I did over 300 million. And I think that the biggest takeaway is that prior to 2020, I actually joined the Leadership 360 family, and I was almost given permission to delegate. I prior to 2020, I would have taken probably 95% of the applications, had 95% of the communication. And then I realized that there was a way for me to delegate and to create a scalable model. And I truly believe if I had not gone through that coaching program, I never would have accomplished what I did in 2020 or 2021, because it allowed me to recognize, hey, I need to add different people on the bus and put the right people in the right seats. And so I remember strategically, I noticed that most of my competitors their voicemails were full and they all had out of office replies. Hey, I'm too busy for you, basically. And I said, I'm not going to do that. So I immediately hired somebody just to watch my email. And then I also hired somebody just to answer my phone. So looking back, what those things did is they allowed me to capture so much more business, because the borrowers couldn't reach their loan officer, they couldn't release their servicers. And I just made two simple, inexpensive moves to be able to capture the calls. So it wasn't even a shopping situation. They were so happy that we actually had somebody live to answer the phone, and we were just faster than everybody. And the team was working 7 days a week, and then we added more and more staff to handle the files and just get them off myself, and I call them my mini me's, and get it into the processing lane. And it's really, I mean, I look back and I'm just still blown away by what the team and I accomplished in 2020.
As you should be. And I just made a quick note about the email on the phone answering, and I want to circle back to that in a minute, because what I'd like to accomplish in our conversation today is to kind of get under the hood a little bit and look into your world on a day-to-day basis. And, what are the moving parts that you have on your team? What do they do, et cetera? I think that's really important. I mean, I would imagine that there are people listening right now that are saying, 1,078 loans. I mean, I can't even get my head around that. I mean, that's a gigantic number, and 300 million in production. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight, and I want to get to what it took to build you up to that. So, tell us about 23 and 24 year to date. Here we are in late June of 24. Where are you at year to date so far?
So I actually don't have those numbers in front of me, but what I can tell you is that last month I did 27 units for over 11 million, and then this month will probably be about the same. Prior to May, so January through April, I think we're hanging around that 15 to 20 mark. I don't remember the specific volume, but it's a struggle. Another takeaway though is that last month when we tracked it, we had 101 inquiries. Now, I can't say that those are unique, meaning it could have been a borrower who may have applied last year, or it could be new. So I can't tell you how many of those were actually brand new, but we literally had 101 people call us in some format. When I say call, whether it was a text or email, and we're closing, I guess, about 25% of those. So prior to that, we were obviously closing much higher because you had a lot of refis. So just the sheer volume of calls, and a lot of it's just longevity. I mean, I've been doing this 28 years, and I've spoken to thousands and thousands of people, and I strategically, and I tell this story all the time to any originator. Back in 2004, there was a magazine, which they don't make anymore, called Mortgage Vision Magazine.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I was in that magazine a lot.
I know you were, and I read you. And there was a section called Superstar of the Month, and that was my goal, right? I'm like, I want to get in there. I want to be on this top 200 list. And 2004, I closed, I think, 400 loans, mostly refis, and I made the list. Actually, the plaque there is, I think, it is. So of all the plaques, that is the 2004 plaque when I first made Mortgage Originator, and that still stands, or is still on the wall. And that's the only one that's actually up there. All the rest are in a box somewhere. And I was so proud. But one of the things that I picked up in that magazine was that yourself, Greg Frost, McMahon, everyone had your past clients, right? And I said to myself, wow, these guys are all top originators. I'm going to model myself after you all, right? And so I made a very concerted effort early on. Had no idea that it was going to turn into what it did, but I made a very concerted effort to make sure that I stayed in touch with my past clients. So while all the other loan officers that I was competing with were showing up to realtors' offices, rate sheets, donuts, I just made a very concerted effort to have that personal relationship with the borrower. And it paid off. I mean, it paid off. If you log that 101 inquiries, I bet you 70% of them were referred by either their friends, their families, their coworkers, a non-real estate agent, right? And then the other 30% would be, my core realtors, CPAs, financial planners, attorneys.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to pull some needles out of
Sure.
the haystack that you just laid out here that is so important. First of all, I had a really interesting nostalgic moment a couple of weeks ago in Vegas. Do you know who Jeff Simfer is?
I do not.
Okay, so he has a podcast. I've been on his show. Really nice guy. And in his presentation in Vegas, he put a slide up, which was an old cover for Mortgage Originator magazine. It
Wow.
just like took me way back. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I used to write for that thing. And it's really interesting what you just said, Sam, because the first thing that I want everybody to really take note of is that you spotted a goal and you made that goal kind of your flag in the sand that you were going to shoot for. And everybody needs to do that. When I My first goal was I wanted to be interviewed by Todd Duncan. He was doing this audio cassette series. I'm really dating myself now, where it was
Right.
his version of a podcast
I
back in the,
probably have the cassette somewhere.
yeah, and I wanted him to interview me. Like
Right.
that was my goal. And everything that I did was driven by that goal. And then after I accomplished that, my next goal was to be in Mortgage Originator magazine and be in the top, 200. And I think it's really important for everybody to really take in the importance of setting some goals for yourself. In this business, you're an entrepreneur. It's incumbent upon you to be the person who kind of sets a standard for yourself as to what you're going to shoot for and what's going to drive you. The second thing that I want to comment on is what you just said about listening for the common denominators of the successful originators. So I'll never forget my first Todd Duncan event. It was 1995, and I was sitting in the audience. There was about 600 people, and I was watching all the guys you mentioned. Greg was on stage. Jim McMahon was on stage. A guy named Jeff Lake, I don't know if you remember that name, was on stage. Great originator out of Chicago. And I had this epiphany moment where I looked around the audience, and I was looking up on the stage at this panel that was being interviewed, and I realized the only difference between those people up there and all of us down here is that they're doing it and we're not. They're telling us everything that they're doing. And all I really need to do is just take good notes and trust that if I implement the things that they're doing and mimic them, as you articulated as it related to database management, that I'll have the same success that they will have. And that may seem overly simplified, but it isn't. It's the path. It's just model what other successful people are doing and know that you will be successful too, but don't get distracted by the shiny objects, which is something that I know that you're very, very good at, is you stay very singular focused on certain blocking and tackling activities. The third thing I want to mention is that take note of the fact that Sam knows his numbers. 101 leads he got. He knows exactly how many leads. He knows what his conversion ratio is. And that's incredibly important, that you measure your success and that you have certain benchmarks that you can live by. So, okay, so, and it's also funny too, Sammy, that, and I know this from coaching you,
Right.
a little insight for everyone here. Sammy will show up to a coaching call with me and he'll be a little depressed and sad. And I'll be like, what's wrong? And he'll be like, I'm only funding 17 this month. And I'll look at him. I'm like, Jesus, bro. Like, do you know how many people would kill to fund 17 in this market? I mean, it's all relative, right? Like, so for you, a month where you fund 17 is not a great month, but for most people, that's like a career month. So, I mean, congratulations, first of
Thank
all,
you.
on your continued success. So what I'm hearing is you have a huge database of loyal followers that you've accumulated from all the years of doing this. And then you have, some outstanding referral sources. So I want to talk a little bit about where you get your business, because when somebody looks at these numbers and they say, gosh, 27 loans that he funded in May and another 27 in June in a business that is, tough right now and highly competitive, like, where does the business come from? So tell us a little bit about your referral partners. How many do you have? And what is your relationship with them? And then B, talk to us about what you do to nurture your existing client relationships, that database of yours.
Great questions. Part of my business, about a third of it, is actually in like three zip codes in Baltimore, and it's part of the Orthodox Jewish community that I fell into, and I grew up in the community and became friends. And there was a loan officer who really dominated the business, and then one of my buddies who I've known since three. Ironically, I'm actually doing a loan for his daughter this month, but I said, how do I get into this community? And he says, well, you got to advertise here and here. And they had like their own little advertising books and their own phone book. And I just kind of fell into the market. And then I became an alternative. And then eventually I became the number one guy. And, for perspective, like I think in 2020, I think in 21208 or 21209, I did like 120 loans. And like the next loan officer was like at 30, right? So I like just dominate certain zip codes. And that client base is extremely loyal. And they pass your name around. And I understand the borrowers, I understand their income, I understand how they structure their loans. And I also give back. I am extremely charitable. I give a lot to Jewish learning and in Baltimore and across the country. And so when people come to Baltimore from other communities, I'm the guy they call, if they're coming from Denver, Cleveland, or New York, and they're going to work at these schools with their family, I'm the guy they call because I've sort of become that guy. And I always chuckle when I ask the bar, hey, how'd they hear about me? And they start laughing. They're like, well, you advertise everywhere. So I did, and I say luck because, Vince Lombardi said this, right? It's not my quote. Luck is where skill and opportunity comes together, right? So I truly believe that in that situation, I saw an opportunity, and thank God I had the skill set to excel, right? Where other people may not. So I did get lucky. I fell into this community. I love working with them. They love me, and they buy homes. I mean, they do. They create families and they buy homes. So that's about a third of my business, and it's pretty consistent. And that community is going to be buying houses no matter what. So I do say that has been extremely helpful. The other part of my business, I have some really good builders that I picked up over the years, and then the CPAs and the financial planners. I'm very good when I get an app. I ask the borrower, do they have a CPA? Can I reach out to them? Do they have a financial advisor? I mean, just simple stuff to create growing, because I have this expression, this business, you cannot stand still. You always got to be moving. So what good is it if I have 20 financial advisors, but only 3 are giving me business? I got to keep adding to that. And so I'm very active with adding those types of referral partners to my mix.
Okay. So I want to call bullshit here a little bit on you, saying that you get lucky. I mean, I think that you make your own luck. Okay. Right. And you always keep moving, as you just said. So you're consistently prospecting and networking all the time. And what I'm hearing here is you found a segment of the population in these 3 zip codes that is the Jewish community, and you made a concerted effort to penetrate those communities and to spend money in advertising and to do a great job for those people. And over time, you became known as the guy in those communities, and referrals started to flow. But that also starts with doing a wonderful job for them. I also heard you just say that you have very simple scripting. You're friends with Caleb LeGrand. You know him well. I mean, right. Caleb has been doing this for years too. He simply asks every single borrower, do you have a real estate agent? And if not, I would really like the opportunity to connect you with someone who's outstanding at what they do. It's a simple ask. I mean, right. All they can say is no, right?
Right.
Like, I mean,
right.
And they're not going to not use you if they say no. They're not going to be offended by the inquiry. So just consistently asking if you can connect with their CPA, connect with their financial planner, will get you opportunities for new relationships. So you have a database. How many people are in that database? What CRM?
It's got to be in excess of 10,000 at this point, and I can't tell you how much are borrowers versus, business partners that are in there, but everybody. I use this spider web analogy that I came up with. Anyone who gets in my spider web, we take their information and it immediately goes into. I use Big Purple Dot just because it was very customizable, and anyone who comes in our sphere, whether they do a loan with us or not, gets put in there, and they can unsubscribe, and that's fine. But we have their information, and we keep notes and track. It's great when a realtor will be on the listing side, and I'll look it up and see what transaction I did with them. And then when I call to follow up on the approval letter, I remind them about that. So it's really important. And look, there's plenty of times where my borrowers have not had the highest and best offer, but the listing agent's going to accept that, because remember, they got to make sure that they bring back the right offer to their seller and it closes. So I have an advantage, and I tell people, you're going to be more successful buying a home with me and my team because of my reputation. And it's true. And it happens time and time again.
What do you send to the CRM and Big Purple Dot? Like, how frequently do you touch base with those 10,000 people, and what type of content do you send to them?
So if they're still subscribed, we actually piggyback on Total Expert, because that's what USA Mortgage uses, because it wasn't worth my time to create my own content, because I've higher better use of my time. So if they are in Big Purple Dot, then they also get Zapiered into Total Expert. So they're going to get that type of marketing. Now, a lead flow is a different conversation, but in terms of the touches, they'll get something from that. And it's just, purely because of the sheer volume, you're going to get a certain number of openings from that stuff. If there's a message that we need to put out, then that's maybe more of a customizable. We try to text that as well. But I don't actively do an annual mortgage review. We tried that, didn't get much success from it. I know that some loan officers push that. I think if you have a smaller database, that probably works. It's just not practical for me to do that. I do use HomeBot. I like HomeBot. It's inexpensive. People don't unsubscribe from it. So that's been really helpful. So even if they unsubscribe from, let's say, the Total Expert, holiday email or recipe of the month, the HomeBot is going to not be unsubscribed. They're going to keep using it.
Yeah, I think HomeBot works well because it gives the consumer information that is important to them. I mean, the home is the largest asset that most people have. Knowing what the value of that home is incredibly important. So here's a little tip for you. Very recently, as in about 3 weeks ago, MBS Highway just announced that they are releasing their product that's called Home Report.
Okay.
And you should probably check that out. And the reason that Home Report, well, first of all, it's less expensive, but I think it's actually probably better than HomeBot in the sense that it actually future forecasts the value of the property over the next 5 years. So it gives people kind of a little bit of an information as to where their property is expected to accelerate to based upon the statistical data that they have access to. So that's just a little tip there of something that I just recently saw in Vegas that was very impressive to me. When you say that you send out content from Total Expert, how frequently does your database get something from you, these people that have opted in?
I actually don't know the answer to that.
That's okay. Actually,
I really don't. Yeah.
There's some wisdom to that. Okay. And the wisdom is that you're not getting caught up in a bunch of shiny objects. I think that it's actually beautiful that you don't know the answer. Right. I presume that, you have somebody else on your team that worries about making sure that database is scrubbed and that it's being consistently contacted, and that you're doing what that you get paid to do, which is to talk to people who need to borrow money.
Yeah. Actually, let me just comment about database management, because I think this is really, really important. What you shared is that in 2020, I had somebody approach me with a loan officer who had a loan officer background, but he also had a tech background. And when we started talking, and I was initially looking for, I call him a mini me, someone who's going to help with taking the apps and structuring the deals. And what I realized is this gentleman on my team was very bright. And when I shared with him my vision on how I wanted a CRM to work, he said, "Oh, I can do that." And he had a mortgage background. So he actually is if I'm on a call or I'm tied up, he takes those loan calls. And I kind of use that analogy of a doctor's office, but let me get to that in a minute. The key to having a database is having it scrubbed and cleaned, right? When he's on vacation for a few days, I mean, the thing's a mess, but that's only 5 days. So my warning to anyone who says, "Oh, I'm going to put all my names in the database," and they put all that energy and time to it, if you don't have somebody on your team scrubbing it and updating it, it's like having a kid's room with a bunch of toys everywhere. They're just all over the place, and you're not going to know which toy to pick up. So that is something really important. So maybe if you're on a team or you have a group, maybe you guys share guys or gals, share somebody to help with that database. Because, if you have your choice of cleaning your database or taking a loan app or taking a realtor out, it's always going to get pushed to the side. So circling back to 2020 success, because we had put this in place, it allowed us to convert, right? So you have to kind of have both to do that loan volume. You have to have a database, you have to have it managed, and then you have to have the spider web where you capture everybody. And you put those all together and you close 1,000 loans.
And you need to consistently be top of mind consciousness. You need to be in front of them and making
All
sure
right.
that they haven't forgotten about who you are.
Yeah.
So the subject matter of referral partners, you mentioned CPAs and financial planners. You work with realtors as well, correct?
Absolutely.
And how many realtors give you business consistently? And what do you do to add value to those realtors? And maybe your answer is just, I get loans done, but and that's in and of itself a unique selling proposition for sure.
I think the realtor relationships, and you actually said this one time, is the realtors that send me business are the ones that I genuinely like and care about and could see them coming to dinner, right? Like those are the ones that give you the best business, and those are the ones you have the connections to. And yeah, I do deliver, and I do help them sell homes because of my reputation. I mean, if you're a realtor and you have a Sam Rosenblatt letter and you have someone else's letter, your buyer is going to have a better chance. So once I've proven myself to them, and also I'm very generous with referrals. Like, I had an agent call me. I don't do doctor loans, right? So I have a loan officer that I've known for years, and I refer the doctor loans to them. And they appreciate stuff like that. And they appreciate me saying, no, I can't do that. Here's who you should call. And I just care. So I think number one, I care, and they know I care. Number two, I close on time, right? Like everyone else. Number three, I'm super accessible, probably too much, as you know from coaching me. I do set some boundaries, but not as much as I probably should. But my nickname's Fireman Sam, like that's kind of a cool nickname to have.
So I think that a lot of originators don't understand the importance of being a deal maker. You know, Caleb and I were talking a few weeks back, and he made an astute observation. You know how sharp Caleb is. And he said, the challenge in today's market is that we're all selling the exact same product.
Right.
Everybody's selling one loan, the 30-year fixed. There are very few 15 years even out there because of how high rates are at and the payment isn't affordable. Maybe there's a buy down in there of some structure, but it's essentially one product and with a little deviation to the buy down. So it becomes even more competitive, right? Like you don't have, you're not in most cases talking to the borrower about a hybrid arm or something like that can maybe
Right.
differentiate yourself at point of sale. So then the differentiating factor becomes that of being somebody who can make deals happen and structure loans in a creative way to where you can get, the underwriting guidelines and you know how to get a loan approved that maybe one of your competitors doesn't. But I think that comes through repetition, but I also think that there can be intentionality behind it. So if you could take yourself all the way back to when you first started as an
Mm-hmm.
originator, to what degree did you really focus on, I see you as an example in the WhatsApp threads. People will put, I have this deal, you know where I can send it. And you're always one of the first people to answer. You have a great knowledge of the investors that are out there. You have a great knowledge of deal structuring. I'd like you to speak to the importance of that and any advice that you have to an originator who doesn't feel that they're an expert in that area and how they can become one, because I think that really trickles down to not only reputation, but the level of confidence that you have in yourself.
Correct. And a lot of it's experience, right? Just the sheer volume of loans. But you're right. I read all the guidelines. I read all the Fannie Mae announcements. I read all the Freddie Mac announcements. I read, anything that comes across my email. I read, and I have a gift. I have a very, very good memory. I just took a loan out this morning from a borrower, and she was actually at my old company, and so I didn't have her 1003 in front of me, and I somehow remember that she worked at Social Security and she worked in IT, and she's like, "How did you remember that?" And I was like, "I don't know." But when I read guidelines, I just remember them. So when people ask me, questions, I get calls all the time. I'm Dave Goldhirsch and Jay, Daisy, they call me, and I'm just a great resource. So that isn't a competitive advantage, right? I don't know how you replicate that. I mean, certainly you can read guidelines, but being able to retain that information without looking it up, I'm not sure how teachable that is or coachable that is. So that is a competitive advantage I definitely have over everyone. I also remind borrowers, that a lot of loans just go perfectly smooth, but you want to know that I'm in the rear with the gear, making sure that that loan is closing and that you don't have any problems because I take care of them before they happen. And I tell this funny story. I had a borrower, did their purchase, and then they did a refinance with someone else, and they came back to me to buy another house. And the guy said to me, Sam, you made our purchase so easy that we just assumed that every mortgage application or process was going to be the same. And, I forget who he went with. And he came back to me because of the experience. So, I don't remember who said this. So I can't claim this line. But one of the things I say to borrowers who are pushing back about it, I said, what's more important, the outcome or the rate? And they go, what do you mean? I said, what if your loan doesn't close? What if your appraisal has an issue? What if there's a title issue and nobody knows how to fix that? And then you get delayed and then you got to pay for movers. You got to put stuff in storage. And I just tell them all these things that can happen when a loan gets delayed. So I'm selling myself. I'm not a salesman, right? I'm really not. Mike Twigg was one of my managers, and he came up to me one day. He says, Sam, you're a technician with a great personality. And that's how I look at myself. I'm not going to tell you to do a loan because I want to earn the commission. I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get into the house.
I was good at structuring loans early in my career. It was definitely a strength of mine. My attention to detail can be quite high if I need it to be. I think you kind of know that from the retreats that we do and how detail oriented they are. And I vividly remember I used to go into my conference room at the first company I worked with, and I'd take all my files in there. There were paper files, and I had this huge stack. I maybe had a pipeline of a dozen loans, and I would literally go through the loans and read through, the approvals and the conditions, and I'd ask questions all the time, like why did we get this condition? What does this mean? What is it that they want to see here that's going to make them feel more comfortable? And my focus was on trying to understand what are the things that I need to predictively ask for in advance.
So I apologize. I don't know how that came through.
I used to look through these files in depth and ask questions of my team and of my sales manager, because I wanted to get to the point where the approvals were coming in with very few conditions, because I realized that ultimately to provide great customer service, you're not going back and asking the borrower 3-4 times for additional documentation. And the only way to get to that point was to really understand what an underwriter would want to see so I could ask for all of it up front. So that is a way, my point in sharing that is a way for an originator to get better, is to do an analysis on their existing files, because there's only so many scenarios, right? After a while, you've seen everything that there is to see for the most part. And if you are taking the time to really become a technician, as you said, you can become a lot more skilled, a lot more confident, and a lot more valuable. Now, eventually I got myself to a point where I realized that my bread is buttered by talking to people who need to borrow money. So I hired somebody to be my transaction coordinator who was even better at breaking down a file than me. But I think it's incumbent upon the originator to understand that on the front end, you really need to be an underwriter. You as an originator and or anybody else that you have on your team alongside you on the front end, you need to get into the mind of an underwriter. And the more that you can underwrite a file before it ever gets into processing, much less in underwriting, the better off you're going to be. So I'm really glad that you shared that. So back to the CRM for a minute. I have a question, and if the answer is no, then I want to encourage you to do this. Do you ever voice broadcast your past client database?
It's funny that you said that, because there have been a couple of times this year where there's been messaging that I've literally written it down, like, hey, I'm going to, do a voice broadcast and send it out. And I just haven't done it. So it's funny you said that, because I would say that that's on my, planning list. Of course, it was probably first quarter I planned it. So maybe now I'll move it to third quarter. But I think I should do it. actually, now I know I should do it. So thank you for the encouragement to do the voiceover, because I think people would like to hear what I have to say versus reading it as an email or a text. And the other option would be to do some video as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's another medium of communication
Right.
that can be incredibly powerful and very cost effective. So like here would be a script for you. Like right now is perfect timing as we record
Right.
this on the 21st of June. You could hit your entire 10,000 person database next week with
Right.
one message that just says, hey, it's Sam Rosenblatt. I just wanted to call and say hi and wish you and your family a happy 4th of July weekend.
Right.
Hope that
Right.
you're having
Which is something that I I don't know if you recall, but when I left Academy Mortgage and came to USA, I actually dressed up in an Uncle Sam outfit, and
I do.
I put it on LinkedIn, and that actually went to Business Partners. But I mean, that thing went really viral. So I was trying to think about something to redo for this year, but I didn't pull it off. But yeah, July 4th and Uncle Sam and USA Mortgage is a pretty easy
Yeah, for sure. It all
marketing
ties in,
thing.
but you could do it. I mean, I used to do a gratitude voice broadcast to my entire database over Thanksgiving
I'm gonna
week.
write that down, Tim, actually, because I will forget. So let me write that down.
Yeah, no worries. I
You're
mean, but
taking
I
notes.
mean,
So
with
gratitude
gratitude for
broadcast.
Thanksgiving, wishing you a great start to your holiday season, a lot to be grateful for. Hope that you have some really connective time with your family.
I
Just
think
want you to be
that's
thinking
a great
about
idea.
you. That's
So
it.
I think that's great. Tim, my light just went out. I need to fix it. I don't know if you noticed I went dark. So give me 1 second. Sorry for messing up your podcast here.
Do what you need to do. We won't be editing this. We'll just keep it real.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody listening here, I mean, look into voice broadcasting technology as a means of a couple of times a year staying in touch with everybody in your past client database so they aren't forgetting about you. Yesterday in the master's program, Pete Metz hosted a Zoom call for all of us on how he's using his new CRM, Go High Level, and within
Right.
Go High Level, there's voice broadcasting technology built into that as well. So let's talk about your team.
Mhm.
And I want to circle back to the email and phone thing that you did in 2020. But how many people do you currently have on your team? Break them down. What are their positions, titles, et cetera?
Right. So the team is down to five. So there's myself, and then I have two mini me's. I call them. You call them junior loan officers. They're able to take a full application. They're able to structure deals. They're able to sell the products, the rates, stuff like that. So those guys help me out when how could I possibly get back to 101 people? So we share those out. Sometimes I'll match it up based on personality or what the borrower needs. One of my loan officers is really good with the bond programs and first time home buyers. Other one's really good with more complex deals. And then I have Erica, who is really my right hand. She's the one who watches the email and the phones. Now I've changed the phone system a little bit because I don't have the luxury of having someone just answer the phone. So what happens is, and I tell every originator to do this. On an iPhone, I think Android too, there's actually, you can have two phone lines, right? So my work cell phone number actually gets forwarded to the office. And so it rings on my desk twice. So if it's someone I want to grab, I can grab it. And then after that, it rings to the whole team. Erica usually grabs it. We have a shared conversation log, like who got the call and what the need is. The reason for it is the people don't leave voicemails anymore, right? And so how are you going to know someone wants a mortgage? So, and if you call us and you don't leave a message, guess what we're doing? We're calling you right back. Hey, it's Sam. Hey, it's Erica. And people are always surprised. And why wouldn't we? Because if we don't answer the phone and they don't leave a message, what are they going to do? They're going to call number two or they're going to call number three. So we call literally seconds later, and I'm obsessed about it. Like if I see a missed call, I'm like, did anybody get that? Because that's someone who needs help. And that's someone that we want to capture, because how many loan officers have this? They see the missed call, they don't call, they call back 3 hours later. Oh, you didn't answer your phone. I called someone else. I'm good, right? No matter what you say about second opinion or rate. So I am obsessed about answering the phone and getting a live voice. I hate when it goes to voicemail. So my call capture is really important. And then we have a log to make sure we know who when the call came in, what the phone number is, what they need, who's getting back to them. Just a Google spreadsheet, nothing complicated. And then it also gets logged on the lead log, and then obviously into big purple dot. Erica also has my email on her computer, so she can respond as me if necessary. She can make sure that we're quick. Again, same thing. Borrower emails, you don't respond, they're going to email someone else, and then you try to get back to them, they've already gone somewhere else, and then you're like, this stinks. So that's really important for us. And then I have one other person. He's the one who helps me with overflow leads, the initial call, and my database management. He's also stepped in to help with more loan activities because we have less bodies. So he's scrubbing files. He's doing disclosing. He's doing a lot more stuff that we used to have.
And then how many processors do you have? You didn't name any processors, but
right. So we have 2 processors which we share, right? So I share them with other loan officers on the team, and then we have underwriting. We use the corporate underwriting, and then there's a closer that we share. But the processors, there's a number of people in our region, so we just kind of share the processing because one processor can't do 27, but 2 processors can do more. So you have to. We share it around, but they've been with me for years. So
when you get conditions on a file, after it's put into processing, who maintains the contact with the borrower and the referral partner, the agent, et cetera, during that part of the transaction? Is it your processor that takes over?
The processor will reach out to the borrower for the conditions if there's a challenge or the borrower's confused or something that we can't explain than myself or my junior guys will get in there. The realtors, for the most part, are happy with just the milestone marketing out of Total Expert. It says, hey, your loan's in processing. Hey, your loan's been conditionally approved. I don't do the weekly calls. It's just never been part of my shtick to call hey, I got an approval. I mean, they see the email that says they got approved. And fortunately for me, majority of the agents have worked with me before, and they kind of know I'm only going to call them if there's a problem. And then they can just kind of focus on selling homes, right? And that's something I share with people. So you do have some agents that haven't worked with us before who will call, and then we'll answer them. But we don't proactively go, hey, we got an approval. We don't do that.
So the leads come in. You get these 101 leads. They come into you, and then you disperse them. You decide I'm going to take this one, or how does that work?
No. So I try not to answer the phone. Right. I try to run it, as I said earlier in the call, like a doctor's office. Right. So if you think when you go visit the doctor, right, and you walk into the waiting room, is the doctor standing there? No. So I had to make this change because if they get you on the phone and then you don't want to talk to them because you're in the middle of structuring a file and you say, oh, I'll call you back. Right. Or it's not a really good customer experience. Right. So I'd rather not answer the phone because then I got to take the call and what if I'm putting together a bar with 5 LLCs and I'm trying to structure it, right? So that's why I make sure that either Erica answers it or the team answers it, and then Erica will hit me up on Teams and say, hey, do you want to take this call? Is this somebody important, or depending on what I'm doing? But then a lot of times they'll go right to Harrison, right? So he'll take that call and he's very professional, and he's like the intake nurse at a doctor's office. He's going to get all their information. He'll figure out the sense of urgency. He'll figure out who referred him. He'll figure out what they're trying to buy, and then he will then put a summary together and he sends it to the borrower and copies me. So that way, when I do get on a call with them, I actually know what that conversation is, and I don't have to start over. In terms of assigning it, I'll decide whether or not it's somebody that I want to take or I'm going to assign to somebody else. But the key to it is that I have the luxury of people answering the phone, determining the level of urgency, right? Is this a triage? Like, do we got to go into surgery right now? They're putting an offer in this afternoon, right? Well, then we got to stop what we're doing. Or is it a bar, hey, I'm buying in 6 months, right? Well, then we can take our time. So I think it's really important that you determine the temperature of that inquiry. I think it's really important.
That's really, really great coaching there on your part. I
Yeah.
hope that everybody really took note of that. Not every lead is created equal. Not every one of them has the same sense of urgency. And if you're going to scale your business, you have to start to refine your
Right.
identification of leads. So how did you train Harrison and the other two originators that are on your team? Or is he one of them? Like how did you get them to the level that they're at right now? What was the means of them learning the business in the way that you would want them to learn it?
Right. So I have a theory, and it's kind of an analogy of, the Ravens. The Ravens, when they draft, they always try to pick the best athlete, right? So sometimes people be like, "Oh, why'd you pick that? That person you needed a need," and they're like, "Hey, that's just the best person available on the draft." So when I interview people, they have to be really highly intelligent for two reasons. One, they got to keep up with me, and two, I don't have the patience to train, right? So I don't have a problem telling you something, but if you're asking me the same thing over and over and again, it's just not going to work, right? It's like, it's my Achilles heel, right? I am who I am. It works, but from a training standpoint, you got to be able to keep up with me, right? And so I know we're pretty early on if somebody's going to be able to keep up with me. So everyone around me is just they're intelligent people, right? I'd rather have people not in the mortgage business come in because they're so much more coachable and moldable, so, or whatever the word is. But so that's really important. That they're highly intelligent. In terms of training, looking back, I mean, Craig is, I'm very lucky. Craig and I met when we were 14 years old. He was best man at my wedding. We worked together in another mortgage company years ago. And then I guess about 5 or 6 years went by, might have been longer. And then he reached back out, I think in 2018, and I brought him back. And it's great because, he allows me when I go on vacation to know that I have somebody who cares about the business, is really high on customer service, structuring everything that I do, and he takes care of that. So he's my lead, and then I have another guy, Renor, who actually started as an intern. He's actually a nice hybrid because he does have some LOA capability, and he got trained by somebody else. But all these guys just kind of are sponges, right? They're just really good at listening and mimicking because, as you said, this business is about repetition.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to ask you a question, but I want to make a comment before you answer the question. The question will be for you to consider how do you identify intelligence in the interview process. But before you answer that, I think that what everybody needs to understand is that the ultimate goal here, you use the term mini me's, I use the term clones, like what would your business look like if you had another you? Or what would your business look like if you had two more people that were just like you, that spoke like you, that knew how to structure a deal like you, that answered questions in the same way that you did, that countered objections in the same way you did? And there is a formula for that I refer to as shadowing. And that is investing the time into letting somebody shadow you for an extended period of time and listen to you on the phone, ask you questions, debrief with them, share with them exactly what you're thinking, why you do things the way you do things, to where they're being trained to be another version of you, because that's ultimately what creates scalability and freedom, to where you can go away for the weekend with your family and you don't have to check in
Right.
because you have capable people, back at home, battening down the hatches. So what is there anything in particular you look for when you're trying to hire somebody that would allow you to assess their intelligence pretty quickly?
Wow. Well, I haven't hired anybody in recently. If anything, I've just been laying people off. So I need to think about that one for a minute. But I do want to comment about your shadowing comment.
Mhm.
So when Craig came back to work with me, I was working at home, and actually right outside there's a desk. It's my wife's desk, and Craig sat there, right, for like 7 months, 8 months,
Hmm.
and looking back, and recognizing the word shadowing, it's probably why Craig's so good, right?
Yep.
He had the luxury of literally, he'd show up 8 o'clock in the morning, be here till whenever. And yeah, he he shadowed me for all those months, and he was a sponge. And so you're absolutely right. I think that one of the challenges with the remote working and not being in office is that I couldn't replicate that, right? I can't have somebody sitting here,
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I think most originators, Sam, are that they wait until it's there's a fire in the house and they hire somebody in a rush situation, they don't really take their time to find the right person. And then they want that person, more importantly, to immediately move the needle in their business,
Right.
come in and take action and have an impact. But that's actually the wrong way to do it. The right
I
way to
agree.
do it is to hire in advance of the demand and to really mentally prepare yourself for the fact that for the first 60 to 90 days at least, this person's not going to do a whole lot for you, because
Right.
what they're going to be doing is they're going to be learning how to be another version of you, because you're going to take the time to let them shadow you and to teach them. Then you're really armed and dangerous after 90 to 120 days, because you have somebody who's incredibly valuable to you at that point. So
I
when we
agree.
get back to the email and the phone thing,
Mhm.
something struck me that you said. I'm picking up on an important theme here, and that theme is the importance of immediate response, getting to people right away. Now, I know that because I've known you a while now, that going into COVID, you were working incredibly long hours back then. I remember vividly. You're in the desk that you're sitting at right now, and your
Right.
home office up until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then going downstairs and being with your family. Um, and then you made the decision that I don't think came very easy for you.
No, it was not.
Yeah, and I want to talk about how you
It,
made
it
that.
was it was not easy at all.
Yeah, that leap of faith to let somebody respond to your emails and to let somebody else take the initial phone calls. Because prior to that, my recollection is you were the one who took all the initial phone calls and you were just overwhelmed. So how did you overcome that concern and fear of letting go a little bit and letting other capable people handle those things for you?
So when I sorry, I'm thinking back to Costa Rica in November of 2019 when my life changed, and I took a leap of faith to even come down there, right? Um, and I was sitting there, and I knew I had to make some changes, and I just did it, right? Like if you think about, I don't know if you remember the story, but I'm not very I'm not the guy who's gonna, get on a jet ski or a motorbike or do anything like that. And you guys had a zip line as the first group activity, right? And I was like, there's no freaking way that I'm gonna get up on the zip line, right? And Michael Regan was sitting there next to me and he was gonna step out. So I was like, okay, there's two of us, right? And Mike was like, ah, screw it. And he puts his helmet on. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, this is day one. And I'm with this group, and this is obviously a bonding experience, right? And I put the helmet on, and I looked at the two little short guys, and I said, so if I get stuck up there, you guys are going to haul my ass up the zip line. And I don't forget the guy's name was. He's like, no problem. I got you, right? And I remember the first zip line. I mean, and I did it. And I did skip the one you have to climb all the way up, but I ended up doing them. And even a couple times I spun around. I think there was one when I was like 10 feet short from the landing, and I pulled myself up, but I did it, right?
Mhm.
So I really dropped a lot of my guard on that day one. And so when I'm sitting there in this coaching program and knowing, my conversation with Craig Strent and Kingsbury, and they're just telling me, just excuse me, I'm sorry about this. I thought it was off. The I said I just got to try it, right? I just have to try it, just like when I did the zip line, and it worked out. So when I was open to delegating and listening to you having coached other people and making it scalable, I just tried it. I mean, what did I have to lose? I kind of was at a point right now where I had to do something, right? And so um, it was hard. I mean, it was really hard because I was like, oh, no one's going to do it as good as me. I'm going to lose leads. I'm going to lose referral partners. People are going to go somewhere else. My business is going to implode. I mean, all those things went through my head, and I tried it. one of the things that you didn't mention was the time blocking. And I think this is extremely important for all loan officers or for anybody in general, is what are you spending your time on, right? So like when I was doing the time blocking, I was an email. I was an email. I was email. So I was getting work done from about 7 a.m. to 9, and then I'd be an email from 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 10, I was working, right? And I had this badge of honor. Oh, look at me, how hard I was. And then, somebody made the very common sense comment, is it working hard or working smart? And,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm really glad that I asked you this question, first of all. I didn't expect necessarily this as an answer, but I think it was absolutely perfect. So a lot of the times the fears that we have in our business and in our life are just mental constructs of what we believe will be the ultimate outcome if we were to take action with something that we're resistant to.
Right.
And most of the time, the fear that we're playing out in our mind isn't true. It's just a story. And when we decide to, and this is the importance of somebody else paving the path before us, is if we can see that somebody else has taken this same leap of faith and have had success with it, and they confronted their fears and concerns and it worked for them, it can give us the confidence to give it a try and to just test it out. And turning over your email and turning over the inbound phone call of something that for the entirety of your career you focused on and has had success with is by no stretch of the imagination a huge leap of faith and a huge confrontation of fear, if for no other reason than the fact, well, I mean, there's a few things at play here. Number one is that you have the fear of worrying about, will everything be okay? Will they handle it the same way that I would have handled it? Will my referral partners and borrowers still like me if I'm not the first person that they talk to? But then there's another fear, and that other fear is one that I find to be even more potent for most people, which is the fear of, well, then who am I? I'm what I'm ultimately asking you to do by giving over the activity of taking the initial phone call and or responding to the initial email is I'm asking you to let go of the identity that I am the man, the person that they can always go to and will always be there for them. And by letting go of that, you then have to ask yourself the question of, well, then what is my role? Like, who am I if I'm not the man or the woman anymore? And that can be very frightening. And yet at the same time, and I heard this quote recently, and I think it's a really powerful quote, fear is the fertile soil for growth. So anything that we're afraid of is actually the soil from which true growth can occur if we are to move into that fear and confront it. That's where change comes from, and that's where growth comes from. And I think you're the greatest testament to it because, you went from being completely tethered to your desk and having not really much of a life is the reality of it during 2020 to now having a lot more balance in your life because you confronted that fear, and I compliment and congratulate you on doing so.
Yeah, no, I and thank you. I mean, obviously, I needed help to get there, which is why I ended up in the program, in the coaching program, because I had to make changes. So I was more open. Well, I wanted, when I came to Costa Rica, for it was just, I was ready to make changes, and look what happened, right? Like, thank God Craig Strength said, hey, call Tim, right? Thank God I went to Costa Rica because I never would have accomplished what I did in 2021 or even what I'm doing now if I hadn't, because how would I possibly handle those loan calls if I wasn't comfortable in delegating? I mean, like everything, it's just looking back, it's like, the pathway that happened for me to accomplish it, because I couldn't have worked any harder if I tried to do it myself, Yeah,
now you bring a lot of wisdom to this dialogue, and I would imagine there are quite a few people listening to this conversation that are in a much different place in their career, Sam. They're maybe doing 2 or 3 loans a month right now, trying to figure it out. So I want you to put on your coaching hat for a minute, and let's assume that you're talking to a group of people right now that are trying to figure out how to get their production to the levels that would be meaningful for them. What are a few suggestions, if you could take yourself back to the beginning of your career and insert yourself into today's market, what would you be doing if you were just starting out right now, if you're doing 2 or 3 or 4 loans a month? What are a couple of things that you think are critical building blocks to becoming more successful?
Great questions. So when you don't have a lot of loans closing right now, I always kind of do a debrief on why that offer wasn't accepted, right? Was it just they got blown out of the water because someone came with a cash offer and waived all financing? What are you going to do as a loan officer? But I think it's important that you educate your real estate agents too in terms of what you can do. I mean, I had a call the other day, and the agent's like, I said, well, what did you put for closing? Appraisal, financing, all that. And he's like, oh, I just put 25 for financing and 30-day for close. I said, well, the bar is putting 20% down. Did you do an appraisal gap? Well, no. So I could have just written that approval letter, right? Bet you, it wouldn't have gotten accepted, right? Or I could have done what I did and helped the realtor and helped my buyer and helped me by making sure that offer is really strong. So I don't remember whether or not the offer is accepted, but what we did is we ended up, doing an appraisal gap. We ended up shortening the financing. We shorted the closing to make it a more competitive offer. So I think it's really important as a loan officer that when you are entrusted with getting your buyer a home, that you take those extra steps, right? A lot of loan officers are like, oh, I'm just going to send the pre-approval from my phone because I have this technology, and then they go about doing the thing. Why? Like, why would you even waste your time doing that? And so many originators do it. Thank God, right? Like, thank God they do it because that makes me special, right? If everyone, what's that expression? Like, if everyone was as bright as me or did it the way I did, I would be special, right? So I think number one, if you do get a lead come in, do everything you possibly can to get that borrower in a great position. I mean, a lot of companies do the TBD underwrites. If you have a super clean borrower, why not get a TBD underwrite done? So that you're instead of going out with a pre-approval letter, it's signed by an underwriter. You got to do everything you can in this market. You got to fight. If you're not a fighter, just quit. I mean, just get out. This is hard. There's that Greek mythology, right? I forget the person, but it's that guy, pushing that boulder up the hill, right? And then it rolls back down. I mean, the last 2 years have been hard. They've really been hard, right? So you got to do everything you can when the opportunity's in front of you to win, right? If you're not competitive, you don't want to win. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to be in this business right now. So that's what I would say about leads that you get on purchase side. In terms of cultivating new business, just go with the basics. I mean, people want to work with someone that they like. There's this guy, I don't know, his name's Tim Braheem, and he said, the loan officer with the most friends wins, right? This brilliant guy, Tim, came up with this line. And I do the same thing. When I heard you say that, I laughed. I'm like, wow, I've never heard anybody, put it in those words, right? But that's what I do. I mean, I went to this Baltimore Real Producers event, Summer Soiree. It's all the top 500 realtors in the Baltimore area. And I walk in the room and people know who I am. I'm going to do business with them, right? But if they get my approval letter and they're on the listing side, they're gonna take it, right? So I think it's super important that people know who you are, so that they remember you, because it's not always the highest offer that wins. It's not. It's is this loan going to close? So taking that the next step, you as a loan officer, if you're working with agents, you just got to keep trying and trying and trying, because it's just a law of you call enough people. Like, I remember when I first got into business in 1995, right? I had a 1 day of training and I got handed literally the mailers, right? Remember the mailers,
Yes, of course.
And I just sat there and I called and I called and I called and I called. That's how I got in the business. And then when I ran out of those, I went into the dead file room and I grabbed a letter, right? And I remember we had files, and I pulled all the dead files out. I just called, right? Because I don't know why the loan didn't go through. And that's how I started, right? Like, I put the time in when everyone else was leaving at 5:30 in the afternoon. I was working till 7. Why? Because I had worked at Macy's selling watches. till 10 o'clock at night. And I always tell this story just so people understand, like, that I had my struggles too. I mean, I'll never forget. Here I went to University of Maryland, College Park, big man on campus, president of fraternity. Like, I was going to set the world on fire. I had 23 rejection notices on the wall. Nobody wanted to hire me, right? The only people who wanted to hire me were life insurance or selling copiers, right? So when I went to Macy's, I'm still living at home. I'll never forget. It was like December 23rd, and we're shutting down the jewelry department. And the general manager comes and says, "We need help folding women's clothes so that we're ready for the next day." And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know, 23, 24. And I'm sitting there literally folding women's clothes. Got out of there at 12:15 at night, went into the parking lot, had my grandfather's Nissan Sentra. You guys can't tell on this call, but I'm 6'2", about 240 pounds. You know how little Nissan Sentra is. And I'm walking out, and I got, my Joseph Bank jacket on and my Bucks and my olive pants. And I'm just like looking at the sky, like, what am I going to do? Right. But if I hadn't worked my butt off to 10 o'clock at night, would I have stayed at 7 o'clock while everyone else left? Right. So everything happens for a reason. So I think it's hard right now. You gotta just keep doing it and keep networking. And besides the realtors, the CPAs, the financial planners, divorce attorney, and however you want to do it. If you're a younger person, Instagram, TikTok, I mean, those things work. I mean, we talk about it all the time,
So it's actually really interesting. I'm not sure which of the two episodes is going to air first between you and Robert Coomer.
Okay.
I had a conversation with Robert yesterday, and this is a really fascinating thing to hear you articulate, because Robert, when I asked him a similar question, he had a very similar answer. He started in a boiler room, call center. And when I asked him why he thought he was so successful, he said, "I got there before everybody every morning, and I left after everyone left every day."
Yep.
And you're articulating something so incredibly simple, but so incredibly important, which is
Right.
you just need to care more. You
Right.
just need to have a true desire to be great.
Right.
And if you don't have a true desire to be great in this business, then you're going to have a very difficult battle in front of you, because it is really tough right now. Did you ever talk to John Wade, who was in Group 11? Did I ever introduce you to him?
No.
So I'll tell you a quick story. And I tell this story in the episode with Robert, but I just think it's so meaningful, and it doesn't hurt for somebody to hear it more than once. John is a terrific loan originator. He doesn't do anything fancy at all. Like, the guy doesn't even have really a dialed in CRM at this point in his career. And he's been doing loans for 15 years. I happen to know he's a terrific loan officer, Sam, because he's done 3 of my loans for me. And my loans are really tough loans because I
Right.
got income coming from different places. And like, a lot of loan originators couldn't get my loan done. But
Right.
he was a true technician, or is a true technician. But he said something very powerful over a drink we were having here in May at the California retreat. He said, "I think originators underestimate the cost of a lost deal."
Right.
And what he meant by that is this, is that if you if you lose a deal because you don't know how to structure it, or because you're not willing, and I realize not all originators have the flexibility to get skinnier,
Right.
but you're not willing to work for a little bit less money on this deal to make the deal happen, you are faced with a defeat. And
Right.
which hurts your confidence. Okay. And he's very big on the subject matter of momentum. He articulated it very beautifully. He said, "The more loans I lock, the better I become. The
Right.
more deals I get exposure to looking at, so I can become a better student of understanding loan files, the more past clients I have that can then come back and do another loan with me or refer me to other people, the more the more realtors that I get an opportunity to work with." So I think that what you're articulating here is something incredibly important, which is you have to, you going back into those old files and calling those people whose loans were either declined or they chose to not go with your company is brilliant, because what it is doing is it's getting you more at bats. It's getting
Right.
you more looks at deals and how to structure them and how to figure them out. And that kind of circles back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation about how you learn and grow. It's by doing a lot of loans. And I think there are a lot of originators who give up too quickly and who don't then therefore therefore get the experience and don't have the following that you have because they didn't figure out through true grit and effort how to make deals happen.
I agree with that 1,000%. I mean, when I look back on 2004 and 2005, I did 400 loans. And you've heard this story. I did 400 loans in 2004. Ironically, I did 400 loans in 2005. I don't know how it worked out that way. But what those 800 loans did is it created the momentum that you're talking about. I didn't know it at the time, but it created those at-bats, those connections. And so I do believe when I have a deal, I don't want to lose it. And I do look at it as a defeat. And I probably dwell on it more than I should. I've gotten better with it. But I always debrief myself. Hey, why did that borrower not use me for their financing? You know, what did I do? But the takeaway is that value of that borrower that maybe you made a little bit less money on it. And what is that borrower going to lead to in the future, right?
Yep.
That doesn't cost you anything, right? Meaning that you didn't have to buy a lead, you didn't have to go market anybody. That borrower around whatever that statistic is about how much one borrower can lead to. It's like 5 or 7 transactions over a lifetime, whether it's them doing it or family and friends. So I took that perspective, and then thank you for reminding me of that, because that was my attitude. I was like, okay, I might make a little bit of less money, but this guy works at this law firm, right? Or this guy works at this school, or this guy works at this hospital, or this guy. So I recognize like where this person worked and what they did, knowing that, hey, they're going to tell so-and-so and so-and-so and so-so. I think that's brilliant. I never really, I haven't thought of it that way in a long time, but I do that intentionally all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this deal, but guess what? It's going to lead to the next one, and it's going to lead to the next one, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a super valuable recommendation to originators that, you got to win. Momentum's important for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to do a loan at a cost to you, and
Right.
and you don't want to work for free. That's not
Right.
what we're saying here.
Sure.
But you also don't want to have so much pride that you're winning the battle and losing the war.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, there's a war that you're fighting here, a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is about relationships.
Right.
Man, I've so enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thanks,
I feel like I've gotten to know you even better, and I feel like everyone that's listening to this conversation is getting so much value. So thank you. Before we conclude, I want to ask you a question that I love to ask everyone near the end of the dialogue. And I want you to take yourself back to your 18-year-old self, and I want you to have a conversation with him right now.
Huh.
And you're here to give him advice with all the wisdom and knowledge that you now have as a grown man who's a successful business person. What advice would you give the 18-year-old Sam right now if you had a chance to talk to him to help him grow at an even more effective pace?
Boy, I wish you'd give me that question in advance. I could have prepared a little bit better.
The beauty is in the organic response.
No, I know why you did it, Tim. I'm just, commenting to myself as I'm trying to figure out how to answer the question. Well, that was a long time ago. I mean, I'm 53, so I mean that was quite a long time ago, and I was, probably getting ready to go to University of Maryland College Park. Go Terps! Anyone watching? I think back then I didn't. I was just excited to go to college, right? So I'm trying to figure out how best to coach myself, because the idea of being a loan officer or being this successful wasn't something that I even thought about at 18. I just was excited to leave home and be at college and see what was going to happen. So I think if I had to say to myself, it's just patience. I've learned patience a lot. COVID forced me to have patience for sure, because you just had to. So I think if I had to say to myself, 18-year-old Sam, just be patient, and it's that, the tortoise versus the hare story, right? And so many times people, they just want to have something happen quick, and that's just the world we live in. And I think that you gotta just have patience and slow down and just be aware of what's around you. You can learn a lot when you listen to your inner voice and the universe and the signs that it shows you. So.
Well, yeah.
How was that for off the cuff?
No, it's great. It's a beautiful answer, because I happen to have some inside knowledge of your accessibility to your inner voice and some
Right.
experiences that you've had where you've had some very clear awarenesses when you've slowed down and have been patient. And I love the fact that you used that tortoise versus the hare analogy, because
Right.
I think at the end of the day, what I'm hearing in all of this conversation is get lost in the process and trust the outcome. If you do the things that are the basic building blocks of being a successful originator, developing relationships, being quick to getting back to people, getting to know people and really caring about them, um, you know, penetrating a community of people by doing a great job for people, the rest will take care of itself. Before we wrap it up and before I say thank you, I want to congratulate you on the Baltimore Orioles 17-5 win yesterday against New York Yankees. I know that that's a big event in your life. I'm happy for you and
Funny.
Chong and Greg and all those
That's
Orioles
right.
fans that are friends of
Don't
mine.
forget Rob Downs. Don't forget Rob
And
Downs.
Robbie Downs, correct. But even though he's in Atlanta, I sometimes forget he's kind of a traitor, though. Like, I mean, let's be honest about it. He roots for the
Right.
Braves too.
Right.
I'm not one that thinks you can have two favorite teams. I think you got to have one. So, Rob, you and I can have a conversation about that on the side if you'd like. Um, Sam, thank you, man.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
muй for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. It has truly been a joy to spend this time with you, bro.
This was great. I knew we were going to have fun doing this, and normally I would have emailed you and said, "What are you going to ask me?" And I didn't, and it went great being this organic. I mean, we've gotten to know each other, and I appreciate our friendship a lot.
The answer would have been, I don't know what I'm going to ask you because I just need to feel into it. So, thank you again. And I want to just say thank you to everyone for listening in. I know that you've gotten a tremendous amount of value from this conversation, and I hope everyone's having a great month. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone. We'll
Tim.
talk to you
All right,
soon.
this was fun. All right, bye
Bye-bye.
bye.